Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here, and this episode is one where we ask the question, who wants to live forever? Because we focus on transhumanism a lot here, and recently when we played this clip of Jared Kushner saying that his generation would either be the first to be immortal, right, or the last to die, I really thought that what we needed to do was separate the different aspects of transhumanism and how there is a movement in which the technology out there will be used to biologically not only enhance one's life, possibly regenerate cells and have somebody, again, de-age in many respects. And you're already kind of seeing this on the market. But possibly extend their life to the point of what they believe will be a biological type of a fountain of youth where you can live at your peak age and health. Now, on the flip side of that is this digital twin, mind clone, track trace database beyond just sensors, but literally nanosensors within, all the way through human brain interfaces and beyond. All right, and that's to enslave humanity, not to empower it. So I came across this presentation from 1998 with a guy named Ben Bova. And there were just so many things about it. It was short. It's a little over 20 minutes, okay? It promoted what? Global warming. He worked for NASA. It reveals itself to be this type of management of the human species and eugenics, in my opinion, when it comes to bearing children. That message is also present at the end. And this guy was also a famous science fiction writer. And by the end of his presentation, what's crazy to me is this is from 1998. The guy actually lives until 2020, into 88 years old, which is quite impressive. But you see the irony of the degradation of his health as he can't make it. It doesn't seem like he can make it through the speech and actually coughs. And that kind of speaks to our own human mortality. Now, I want to say this. Again, if I thought that this technology, which he is going to espouse to everybody, were there to empower humanity, I am not against it. But I see the breaking points, and I see the talking points, and I see human beings constantly being demonized for basically ravaging and raping Mother Earth. Period. That's what I see. So, thumbs it up, subscribe, share. Before we get going, I want to remind everybody I am a documentary filmmaker. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order to Find and Shade the Motion Picture. Guys, less than 40 people watching. I thought this was a funny, Freddie Mercury reference, the song Who Wants to Live Forever. You got the transhumanist Darth Vader there that merges with the machines in the false hopes of living forever. Is it too deep? Was my thumbnail too deep? I don't know. I guess it wasn't a headliner. You can also support me with the Buy Me a Coffee down below. I want to remind people to Rockfin on a desktop. Subscribe, $9.99 a month or $99.99 for the year, and get ready to Red Voice Media 4 days a week. Right now you can get my exclusives on Friday. Had a great one with Pasta Jardula all about election integrity. Start for just $1. redvoicemedia.net/Jason. Without further ado, let's start this off with the introduction because I want people to get an idea of this gentleman's accolades.
Now, what we are about to hear does have enormously powerful economic and sociological implications. Indeed, the timeliness of this topic, how science is extending your lifespan and changing the world, is so topical that the Lobo Schnell team perhaps deserve our double praise. As we look no further than yesterday's Sarasota Herald Tribune #1 story. How many people did you see the story? Science isolates human stem cells. And the opening of the story talks about pushing the frontiers of biology closer to the critical mysteries of life. And science has for the first time picked out and cultivated the primordial human cells from which the entire individual is created. This is really, really exciting stuff.
Let's just stop it there. Kind of gives you an idea of the times. Stem cells just being introduced into the public arena in 1998. And a lot of that research has been hampered or catered to by the wealthy and the elite, proving my point in many regards, okay? And now I want to show you what they're rolling out to the public right here. Stanford scientists create a hybrid brain by putting human neurons into baby rats. And they've dubbed their creation a living laboratory. They've been doing chimeras for years. A lot of this stuff is still classified, underground. But now they're rolling chimeras out because it's a transhuman agenda. Xenotransplantation itself, which Martine Rothblatt is behind, is now getting approval through the FDA, where they're growing organs via a lot of this stem cell stuff. That's, again, gone through this process within pigs. All right? That's where we're at. So let's continue with this right now.
What unites us at such an event as this, beyond a love of reading, is our common quest for learning and intellectual curiosity. Anyone left that does not now take the topic seriously should know that Dr. Ben Bova, from whom you will now hear, not only writes about the future, he has helped to create it. The author of more than 90 nonfiction books and futuristic novels, he has been involved in science and high technology since the very beginning of the space program.
Since the beginning of the space program. So another one of these NASA guys promoting transhumanism, also a fictional writer, right? Getting into the psychological warfare aspects of this, projecting ideas out there, such as immortality, right here.
As an executive of the Avco Everett Research Laboratory, he worked with leading scientists in the fields such as high-powered lasers, artificial hearts, and advanced electrical power generators. President Emeritus of the National Space Society, he is a member of the steering committee for the NASA Space Transportation Association study on space tourism.
And space tourism, what we're starting to see right now is what? For the wealthy and the elite, the next hype is that this is what they're going to let Tom Cruise do. He's going to do an actual spacewalk. And it's this lollipop that they keep putting out in front of you. It's the carrot on a stick. That this stuff is for you somehow. It's not. It's not. It wasn't then. It isn't now.
A member of the editorial board of USA Today, as well as the former editor of Omni magazine.
So again, this thing was just so perfect because it shows you that like fake news isn't a new phenomenon and narrative management isn't a new phenomenon. The difference was that the internet was very, very crude in its existence in 1998 when this is there, just coming into being. And communications wasn't there. People didn't have the ability to get things and upload and share information. When narrative control gets out of the hands of these people, that's when you see the clampdown, which we're seeing right now.
Dr. Bova has taught at Harvard University and the Hayden Planetarium. He is a frequent commentator on television and radio and a popular lecturer on such topics as the impact of science on politics, space, the craft of writing, and the art of predicting the future. Both Kim and I found his book well written and fascinating, and we certainly recommend it. Ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman who wrote this book, Immortality, How Science is Extending Your Lifespan and Changing the World, the foremost and current authority on the most dramatic event in our ever longer lifetimes. Please help me give a very warm welcome to Dr. Ben Bova. Ladies.
And look, he's going to come out here. He's a little old Italian guy. He's going to talk about that. He's going to crack a joke. He's not really going to sing a song. But then he's going to start promising you the world of immortality.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a real delight to be here at the Sarasota Opera House. We come here during the season for the operas, and this is the first time I've been on the stage. You know, usually I'm sitting up there. Now, my heritage, my background is Italian, and being on an opera house stage, I have just a small section here from Il Trovatore. No, believe me, you don't want to hear me sing. I've written a book called Immortality, and I'd like to start this by asking, how many of you want to die? Well, then you can leave, sir. This is going to be terribly disappointing for you.
And let me just say this. Right away you're feeding off of really humanity's fear of what is next. And I want to say it again. If I thought what he was saying were true in the sense that this would be something that were for the masses and empowered humanity, and basically the only way that you end up dying is through some sort of a physical accident or malevolence, that's an argument one we can have. That's not reality. That's not who this is going to be for. But they need salespeople to push you into that mindset.
I have good news for you and better news. The good news is that you'll be able to live for hundreds and hundreds of years. And the better news is that you'll be able to remain young as long as you live. In fact, if you're in the latter stages of your youth, as I am, there's some evidence that you can even reverse aging and make yourself physically younger. When we talk about aging, we talk about two things intertwined. The idea of the number of years you live, and also the physical condition of your body. We expect a 90-year-old to be in worse physical condition than a 20-year-old.
Now, of course, he's going to say that's not going to be the case. He's even going to start talking about HGH. But I want people to understand that this is the type of thing that Peter Nygard was involved in. And Nygard's trial has now been set. My man Big Fish continues to be on the case. We've been retweeting some stuff there. But there's a guy that was using a lot of the stem cell stuff, the testosterone, and then also the stem cell stuff, basically, allegedly, you got to be careful here, from sexually assaulting underage girls as young as 14, forcing them to have abortions, and then using those stem cells to de-age his physical body. Again, lovely.
What scientists are doing, biologists, are learning how to separate the two so that the physical condition of your body will no longer have much of a relationship with the number of years you've lived. You'll be able to live for hundreds and hundreds of years, but remain physically young, active, and vigorous. That's the message of my book, Immortality. And the book started, more than 30 years ago. I was working in a research laboratory in Massachusetts, and we started to work on the very early artificial heart devices. And one Sunday afternoon, a group of us got together for a brainstorming session, and the question was, forgetting about all the limitations of technology and funding, what would be the perfect replacement for a failing human heart? And it struck me then that the perfect replacement would be you grow another human heart right there in your chest.
Now, right there in your chest isn't quite where we're at. But we've talked about many times, not just printable food and 3D printers that we can buy commercially, or even rocket technology with different types of materials that are more than likely classified, right, Rocketdyne? We've played those clips. But printing organs, okay? And what you have now, again, I can't emphasize it enough, is this xenotransplantation. Pig kidney for kidney failure. So what's to say that we're now seeing this publicly, right? That what he's saying isn't already taking place. in genomically created chimera type human beings. We just showed you chimera human mice in public. I'm just pointing that out. You know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And by the way, thank you, Tom Dedamore, for supporting the broadcast with that Tipsky and Hutch over at Rockfin. Let's continue on with Ben Bova, 1998, Immortality.
Out of your own tissues. I mean, you did it once. Once you were just one single cell, and you multiplied and produced all the organs of your body. The information to do that is still in the DNA of every cell in your body. We just don't know how to trigger it. The information is suppressed because the body figures once you've got one heart, two of them is just going to confuse things. But biologists are learning how to do this kind of thing. And over the years, I followed the progression of research strictly as an outsider, strictly out of curiosity. And then about 4 years ago, I realized that there are several lines of research that are coming together, and when they come to fruition, we're going to be able to live virtually as long as we please.
So let's just stop it here. You notice again, everything is set in this utopian mindset, and at the same time he's talking about this, remember, Kurzweil is writing and putting out the Age of Spiritual Machines, where we are creating entities that, whether or not they truly have and achieve consciousness and spiritual experiences, they will convince our species that they are, and they would be intellectually superior because they are based in AI. That's never brought up in this, the two competing ideas of transhumanism. And certainly neither one really gives any weight to the predator class being in control of this and selectively using the technologies, again, to empower themselves while enslaving the rest of us. Just throwing that out there.
Hundreds and hundreds of years. And imagine you're living 250 years, and on your 249th birthday, science comes out with some new ideas, so you can extend your life even further. Now, we'll be able to stop aging. We'll be able to live as long as you desire. So I started writing this book, and then something very ironic, very tragic happened. My father died after a very long and tough illness. He was about 89 and a half, and everyone said, you know, that's a good long life, but I kept thinking it could have been more. He died too soon. But he taught me a lesson in his dying. He fought it every inch of the way.
And I think a lot of people can sympathize with what he's saying here, especially when you're talking about somebody that you love unconditionally.
Didn't go peacefully. He was in a coma the last few weeks of his life, and even, totally out of it, he struggled on. He wanted to live. And it occurred to me that this is the real message of life, that life seeks to continue living. You can look through a microscope at bacteria struggling to live. Every blade of grass on earth is struggling to stay alive. And we all do the same. Life clings to life.
And I think that's what's really amazing about the physical, biological universe in which we can observe the things around us. There is a consciousness that goes you look at what we think about plants, and there have been many studies out there. They have some sort of a consciousness as well. And our consciousness has never been able to be replicated or isolated or fully understood. I want to put that out there. And that will to live is there. But what we don't know is what happens when that biological life ends. So let's continue.
And we are gaining the ability to extend our lives for hundreds and hundreds of years. And I think that when that ability becomes real, people are going to take advantage of it. Right now, in research laboratories, there are samples of human cells that have been kept alive for 3 and 4 times longer than their normal lifespan. If that process were done to you as an individual, you would live for 200 or 300 years easily. And you would remain young and vigorous easily. There have been experiments done in Wisconsin where, on a short-term basis, a small group of elderly men received injections of human growth hormone. Their aging reversed. Their skin got smoother. Their muscles gained strength. And when the injections were stopped, they began aging normally again.
Now, we've seen that. You don't even have to get to the quote-unquote Predator classic, and we talked about Nygaard. But take a look at Sylvester Stallone. That just would not have been possible if he was 30 years older than he was today, into his 60s. Some of these people in their 70s look tremendous. And it is through these HGH testosterone-type therapies. There's stem cell treatments. We've talked about NAD+ on this program, right? Resveratrol, metformin, a lot of different things.
All of these things are happening now, and they're going to come to fruition very, very soon, much sooner than anyone realizes. I've told this story to audiences all around the country, and scientists have said that they're surprised themselves, but they can find no fault in the evidence and the conclusion. Some of them say, I may be a little optimistic, saying that it's going to happen within maybe 10 to 20 years. It might take longer.
Now, again, 10 to 20 years, you started seeing a lot of this stuff become more and more commercially available if you had the money and the means. Now, it didn't mean you weren't going to die, but it meant you could get on drugs so that if you exercised, you could go far past what it would have been possible to do so with your regular biology, again, 10 to 20 years ago.
But there's no doubt among the scientists that this is what's happening. Now, what kind of a world are we going to have when all of us live for many centuries and remain young, vigorous, active? The first thing you think of is, there goes my pension. Social Security, Medicare, private pension plans, they're all going to have to change. There's a phrase in the marriage ceremony, till death do us part. Do you really want to stay married to the same person for 200 or 300 years?
Oh, they got jokes. It's hilarious. Some people can't get married for a year. Are you kidding me? Especially these days. What? When they've de-emphasized working things out, you're a team player, the nuclear family, having children, those type of things. And by the way, they're going to de-emphasize. He's going to do it very slyly. They're going to de-emphasize having children as well. That's one of those wink and a nod moments to let you know what this is really about. Eugenics.
I do. I hope my wife does. But my wife also points out that perhaps when the death rate is way down close to zero because no one dies from aging, the murder rate will go up. She can see living with the dreaded in-laws for 20 years, but 200? There are serious problems here. This is going to be something so new and different that many people will fear and reject the idea of living forever. I've had long discussions with people of very deep religious conviction, and they're saying, no, we're not meant to live forever. We're meant to die and then go on to the next life. Sometimes I feel what they're really saying is, I am meant to go on to my reward in heaven, while my rotten neighbors are meant to go to their punishment.
Well, let me just stop it there. I think that's projection. I think that, again, makes me extremely skeptical of the actual motivations behind something like this, because that's not certain. I don't want to see anybody punished. And I don't think that there's some like reward for me at the end of the day, right? I just know good and evil exists, and I'm trying to do a good on this planet. And everybody that keeps telling me that I need a social credit score and I got to watch my carbon footprint, the fruits of their label is dark and evil and grotesque. Just saying.
But I see no conflict with religious beliefs. You know, religion seems to be unchanging, but people have changed their minds and seen God and our relationship with God in a different light. Back in...
You know, I can't help it. You see the all-seeing eye right there, right? The God in a different light, and it's projecting. It's got like the beams on it. It's just a coincidence. You know, it's one of those synchronicity moments, if you will.
Colonial Boston, there was a terrible smallpox plague, and one of the most famous preachers there, Cotton Mather, his father was very influential in the Salem witchcraft trials. Cotton Mather inoculated his son against smallpox. The boy nearly died, but pulled through. And the other preachers in Boston railed from their pulpits that the very idea of trying to prevent someone from coming down with smallpox is blasphemy. That smallpox is a scourge from God. And if you try to avoid it, you're trying to thwart God's will.
And again, you know, when you hear those type of things, it's very dismissive of any type of organized religion, right? They equate it to witchcraft, if you will, right? So again, it makes me take a step back when I hear stuff like that.
Well, today we know that smallpox and many other diseases are caused by infections, by germs, by bacteria and viruses. We no longer regard it as a scourge from God. We regard it as something that we can cure. Smallpox itself no longer exists. Human science has eliminated every smallpox virus on Earth, except for a small sample being kept in a well-guarded laboratory.
Yeah, we love those laboratories and how well-guarded they are. Just throwing that out there.
And there's a long discussion among the biologists about destroying that small sample, too. We constantly change our attitudes, and what kind of a world will it be when we are living for much, much longer, for hundreds of years? Well, one thing is certain. You're going to have time to do all the things that you now think you won't have time to do.
So here it is again, utopia. You're going to be able to have whatever kind of careers you want to be. It literally says you can be an astronaut and a violinist, and there's no limit on time. Even brings up some of that virtual universe they're going to promise us, where you can be a neurosurgeon. You're going to practice in virtual reality. All the good things, all the great possibilities for you. There'll be no class systems.
If you want to retire from one career and start a new one, you'll have hundreds of years in which to do it. If you want to become a concert violinist or a tap dancer or an astronaut or a deep-sea diver, you'll have the time to learn. I think you're going to see, in fact, we're already beginning to see, education and entertainment merging. And in the very near future, they're going to be virtually seamless. Kids today, my little grandchildren, 4 and 6 years old, they get on the computer. They play games. They don't know that they're learning to read, but they're getting their education through interactive CD-ROM systems.
And again, I'm all for empowerment. You know, those devices have empowered us to be able to maneuver around with GPS better. He talks about programs for their kids. There's an online math program I know that works that aids me out there as well. Yes, those things do exist. They always play those up.
You will get your education. You know, those of you who want to become brain surgeons someday, you'll learn how to do it in virtual reality systems. You'll have lifelong education, but not in a classroom, at home, at your own pace, learning from the best teachers in the world. at your own pace.
From the best teachers in the world. There's something about being one-on-one. There's something about a real interaction that isn't AI and over a computer screen, period. I want to put that out there. And they're trying to eliminate actual physical teachers. I mean, look, I love the masterclass system too. And you can learn a lot on YouTube, especially tutorial-wise when you're talking about software or drawing is a great one. People that want to become artists, different tools, mechanics. Absolutely. Absolutely. But in order to master the craft, you have to get in there. You have to personalize things. They want to detach the humanity away from everything at your own pace. At your own pace.
All of these prospects of the future are sort of overshadowed by one very massive problem. When the death rate is put down close to zero, when the only people who die are the victims of accidents or malevolence, then we're going to have to learn how to bring the birth rate down close to zero.
Oh, we're going to have to learn how to bring the birth rate down. Ooh, how are we going to do that? And it'll be a good thing because every child that comes into the earth should be loved. Every child should be special. So like he's telling you here, again, someone's going to have to take care of how many children you're allotted, if you're allotted to have children. How are we going to bring that birth rate down to zero? Allotted down to zeros or close to zeros.
Or have a tremendously expanded population, one or the other. I would like to see a world in which people have babies because they want to have children, not because it's expected or any other reason. I would like to see a world in which every child born is cherished and nurtured. And I think that's the kind of world we're going to move into.
And again, it's all semantics and double speak. That's not what he means at all.
Because when you can live for hundreds of years, I think you'll gain a new sense of responsibility. You know, today we unconsciously think, I'm living under a death sentence. I'm going to die sooner or later, no matter what I do. So the long-term problems don't bother me very much. All right, so there's global warming.
Oh.
And someday the glaciers will melt and all the ice in the South Pole will melt.
Everything's a catastrophe. It's global warming. Humans are bad. Another reason to be skeptical of Mr. Bova.
The oceans will rise. Florida will go underwater. I don't have to worry about that. I'll be dead and gone. No, you'll be here. You'll either learn how to control pollution or buy swim fins. All the long-term problems are going to be our problems because we're going to live long enough to see them come home and roost.
So, again, this feeds into that social Darwinist predator class agenda. It's like, forget about quote-unquote white man's burden, predator class burden. We're going to have to fix all the problems, and in order to do that, we're probably going to have to exterminate a lot of people. We're also going to have to bring in a virtual era. And we're going to have these two different levels of transhumanism, but of course we're the ones with our labs at Calico and others that should live forever.
So I think we're going to be able to build a much, much better world where people really have a sense of responsibility and they learn to live with each other and with the world around us. Despite all the problems, despite all the changes in society this is going to make, the underlying fact is, for almost every one of us, if we have the choice between living and dying, we will choose to live.
But will we have that choice? Think to yourself, how well has modern medicine really benefited the common man? The useless eater? Or the, as Prince Philip would call it, and he said this, basically the population, 1984, is getting to plague-like proportions. The human population is plague-like proportions. What do you do to plagues?
Aging and death are going to disappear. We will be living in a world of young people who are incredibly wise because they've lived for hundreds of years. One presumes if you live for hundreds of years, you'll get wiser as you go along. And
Costello, thank you so much for that tip. You'd hope that. You'd hope that. But then again, you're going to be fighting with AI and digital twins and mind clones, apparently, too. It's going to be a wacky world.
the very fact that death is going to be removed from our fears is going to mean a different kind of world, a different attitude. We today have something like 6 billion people on Earth. There's arguments about how many human beings the planet can support, but clearly 10 to 20 billion can be fed and housed with the resources of this world. And eventually we'll begin to bring resources in from other worlds.
So, you know, at least he gives you the 10 to 20 billion, although we're dangerously close to 10 right now, and there's some big scare and fear-mongering there. This is back in 1998. I think we go well over 20 billion. Chris Youngblood, big ups, Jason, for being live Central Time late, bro. I appreciate that, my man. But again, there's still a cap, right? There's a cap on how many people we should be allotted. Who gets to decide that cap? It's not me.
But how many of you really feel that you would choose to die at a certain point? I think as long as you're healthy, as long as you're feeling good, you probably will continue to live, or want to. I was doing a book signing in Denver, and an elderly gentleman came to me with a copy of the book and asked me to sign it. And he said, "You know, I'm 95 years old." He says, "And I don't want to live forever." I said, "Another 100 years would be good, though." There's one thing about the theory, you know, well, I don't think I really want to live forever. But when you get right up against the fact, you know, do you want to go today? The answer is usually no. I think it would be much better if we had this choice of life or death.
Here's the thing. You're not going to have this choice. And I'm going to let him keep talking, but soon enough, he's going to start coughing. And that's when we're going to cut it off, because that's when it just rambles and they end up cutting him off. We got a new subscriber, Clarissa Johnson. Thank you so much for subscribing through the post.
Our own hands, rather than just waiting for the inevitable. As I've said, it's going to mean a very different world, but a much better world. A world in which we can do great things together. A world in which I think the idea of people growing old and frail and dying will seem like a bad dream. And just about everyone in this room is going to be around for that time. You're going to live a long, long time.
Again, these promises in the late 90s, 98, I wasn't even 20 years old yet. I was 19 years young.
You better get ready for it.
And there it is. And that begins his coughing fit and the cold taste of actual mortality. There he is right there. Ben Bova, everybody. You want to support the broadcast? First of all, thumbs it up, subscribe, and share. You can buy me a coffee. The link is down below. We just had somebody subscribe over at Rockfin, $9.99 a month, or $99.99 for the year. You endorse Jason Bermas. You get a bunch of other creators. It's like a Netflix for creators. Great stuff. Rumble, Rumble, Rumble. Everything's free. Everything's uncensored over on Rumble. We already have, I believe, 4 exclusives over at Red Voice Media. Great stuff, hour-long plus. For $1 right now, you can start that. They've got other great creators there, including my lady, one of the most lovely people I've ever met in my life, Alicia Powell. And Miss Powell actually is going to be putting up an exclusive with Aubrey de Grey, another one of these futurists / immortality folks. Very interesting interview there, so check it out. And remember, all my documentary films are free. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, and Shade the Motion Picture. Couldn't do it without you. Love you all, and I will see you on the flip side.